Hey everyone, this is Prince from Desi Programmer. Welcome to this exciting video where we are going to talk about delivering your products on mobile. Or in simple terms, we will see a comparison between native development, React Native, and Flutter. But this title will be an oversimplification of this video. Now, if you're someone who is confused by all these options available and doesn't know which fish to cast, this video is for you. This video is sponsored by myself. Check out my website desiprogrammer.com for a lot more quality content. This will help you to learn better and will also support the channel. Let's first get started with what are the options available. And we have native development options like Java, Kotlin, Swift or Objective-C. We also have web view app, but we won't talk about that because that's not the really concern here. We have React Native, which is from Facebook itself, and we have Flutter, which is from Google. Both support cross-platform development with a single code base. And last but not the least, we have PWAs too, which are progressive web apps. So now the PWA is also becoming a very major contender. But what they actually are, let's get in a bit detail with them. So talking about native development, so native development means coding apps which are built for a specific mobile OS, either Android or iOS. On the coding part, native development uses Kotlin or Java in Android with XML, which is used for restoring configuration and UI. And at the iOS part, a C# or Swift is used. React Native is a framework for writing real natively rendering mobile applications for both iOS and Android from a single code base. On the development part, React Native uses HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Although it's not purely HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that you know, but if you know these languages, coding in React Native will be far simpler for you. Flutter is almost as like React Native. It's Google's UI toolkit for mobile, web, and desktop apps from a single code base. So basically, it takes the game a lot further and adds even web and desktop in the single code base part instead of just both of our Android or mobile operating systems. On the development part, Flutter uses Dart completely from configuration to UI. Now, PWAs, last but not the least, PWAs stand for Progressive Web Application. It's an installable website that gives better look and feel than a website in a browser. This is really a very amazing technology, but although the tech is here, the actual use case will still take some time. And PWAs are a topic for some another videos. Getting deeper into that, we will do then. Now let's talk about the pros and cons of each of these type. So first, talking about native development, the pros are that they are fast, more secure, and they give better look and feel as they are for a specific platform. And they also provide access to almost every device feature and API. But the cons is that the development process is time taking, and if you want to build for both the platforms, then coding each app will take not just time but also money. And also the process is considered a bit traditional and complex in comparison to React Native and Flutter, which are modern frameworks. When it comes to React Native, the pro is that obviously since it supports cross-platform development, which means write once and run on both Android and iOS, this is why it's time efficient and cost efficient. But the cons is that the performance is low in comparison to native applications, and also for coding some native components, you will at the end need a native developer who can make sure that these components are optimized in your particular code base. The same goes for Flutter too. The pros and cons are at almost same here, where the pros is that it's time efficient, it's cross platform, it's cost effective, but the cons is that it's again low performance when compared to native development. Also, we need a native developer when we're talking about Flutter development for coding some of the components. And Flutter is relatively new, so it's considered more unstable than React Native. Now, the next thing is that what if we compare them with each other? So let's take a look at the game here. So talking about the performance, obviously native apps perform far better than any platform. But if you're comparing React Native and Flutter, then Flutter wins the performance game as it directly executes code instead of using a bridge like React Native. Then we have app size. Well, so again, native apps are relatively lower in app size, while React and Flutter have almost the same app size, with Flutter app size being around zero point 0.5 MB more in normal situations. So what I mean is that if you take a simple Hello World app in release mode, then a native app will be around 600 kilobytes, while React app will be around 7 MB and Flutter's app will be around 7.7 to 7.5 MB. So if size matters for you, choose carefully between these platforms. We're talking about device APIs, another very important feature. And as I said earlier, native apps can access almost every available device API. And in React versus Flutter comparison, React has more API support than Flutter, obviously, because it's here since a long time. But Flutter's community is also growing rapidly. And then we also have the topic of community packages, which is third party packages. Now, native development too has a lot of packages, but native also gives us a lot of direct access. Hence, we don't need much of community package there. And once you need, since it's there for almost 15 years, almost all packages will be available. But talking about React Native versus Flutter comparison, then React Native is more popular and more older than Flutter. So it has lot of third party tools and libraries. So if you think of any library, it will exist in Flutter, React Native, obviously. But Flutter 2 has really great libraries, and the Flutter library community, like Flutter third party community support, is growing very fast. Still, there is a long way to go because of the instability issue. Last but not the least, we have developer support too. Why? Well, we are a developer, so we need to know which which support is better. What should you learn or not? So native development has documentation for almost everything. And when it comes to native development, there are lots of tutorials, blogs, and a lot of community answers. So if you're going in native development, all the documentation is something that you can rely on, but you have a ton of tools that you can use in native development. But talking about React Native versus Flutter, which I know obviously most of you want to know, then see, React's documentation is far better than that of Flutter's. If you are a beginner, you can easily relate to React's documentation, but understanding Flutter's documentation could be a bit tricky here. However, both of them have the same question and answer Stack Overflow. Like recently, Flutter question have been added a lot, and if you're stuck at a simple single issue, you can easily find it. But remember, if you're stuck at some specific issue at some core level, then getting support is really tough and tricky for both of these frameworks. However, React Native can give you, for Flutter is still really tough and really tricky. And last but not the least, most of the time you might be thinking that, hey, who is using this particular framework? Because if any larger scale application is actually using it, only then I should be using it. So we are not even going to talk about native uses, because obviously we know that that's a very huge market. But talking about React Native, there are actually thousands of projects. And one of my personal favorite projects that I can see being used in React Native is Discord. So Discord actually scales to millions of users using React Native. So it says that, hey, React Native is really stable. However, Flutter 2 had some great apps. But remember, Flutter 2D doesn't have any such major project to show, which I can say that, hey, see, look at this application. This is being built in Flutter, so you will love it. I mean, if you take a look at all these applications, if you go deeper, then you will realize what's the thing which is being hidden from us. However, at a medium or small scale project, both of them are working really good. So, what should you choose, right? So, if you are a job seeker, if you want to be a freelance developer, then Native, React Native, or Flutter, all of them have really many great postings available, really many great job openings available. You should really be a good developer in them, and you can get a job in any of these scenarios, right? If somebody tells you that, hey, React Native is that hey, native development is that hey, Flutter is the one and the only future, then they are actually playing with you, because it's not the truth. There is still many job openings for native development. There is still many projects which are being run and maintained in React Native, and there are many new companies which will want new Flutter developers. So whatever you choose, you are probably good to go. But the important part is that, hey, what if you are someone who wants to develop a project? Well, this part is tricky. So see, the thing is that if you want to code an app that will be used in a lot of device APIs, that will need a lot of security control, should be blazing fast, and then you should use native app development only. But the entire use case of React Native or Flutter is that if you just want to have a backend, need to grab some data, display it beautifully, and do some things on it with ideal performance and moderate device API uses and control, then you can choose React Native or Flutter. In simple terms, if you want to book some simple service booking app, e-commerce app, or something that uses APIs to display data and manipulate it with some single users to device API, you should definitely go for React Native or Flutter. Whichever you choose, you will be completely fine. But if there are requirements like using a lot of device APIs or something that does CPU or GPU intensive task, then you should better go for native development only. I mean, cross platform development can also fulfill your need, but you have to be really careful here, because there could be one single feature that you want in your application, but it may not be supported by these frameworks. And as someone who is starting to learn, it's someone who is just thinking that, hey, what should I learn? Well, see, well, the thing is simple. If you want to build giant apps and you can deal with a lot of complex and time taking learning curve, then you can choose native development. I mean, the path is really complex, but at the end, you will be better at whatever you do. Or if you just wanted to get started with some medium level app development, so you can use any framework like for React Native or Flutter. And I know you might be wondering which should I choose, whether React Native or Flutter. So see, the thing is simple. If you really want to build something right now, if you want to completely rely on your project or on your app, then you should choose React Native. But if you're okay with giving more time to learn, and if you don't want to code very giant app at right now, and if you can, if you're ready to sacrifice some features because they're just not available or because coding them won't be optimized, then you can go with Flutter. I mean, there are actually some inconsistencies, some instability in Flutter as of now, but these things are visible when you're talking about an app in really good production level. If you're learning, if you're putting a mediocre app, then you won't have any problem at all. And last but not the least, if you're someone who is thinking that, hey, I will learn this X technology and then I'm just good to go with this in my life, let me tell you, in development, you need to reskill yourself in every 2 to 3 years. So it's not like you can learn only native app development and that's it. Your learning process has come to an end. You will always have to make sure that you learn new things. So most of the time, you will see people who know native development and they know bits and pieces about cross-platform development too. So yeah, it's not a big deal. Just choose whatever you want and dedicate yourself. And by the end of 3 to 4 months, you will be completely fine with all of these things, whether it's native, whether it's cross-platform, or whether it's PWAs, which are coming soon, and they are some great technology. But we'll talk about that in some other video. Till then, keep coding, keep loving, keep shading, and peace.